Alright, hey guys, so this is a video long time past due, and pretty much it's how to perform a chain tension maintenance on a ZX6R. This one's a 2022, and I just kind of want to do a real quick, short, to the point, follow me along step by step, and you're not going to miss a beat, okay? So I'm going to go nice and slow, explain every single thing that I do. I heavily recommend watching this whole video one time through before you start doing it yourself. That way you don't miss any sort of tool or item that you need, okay? All right, so let's begin. All right, so first things first, I got my chain cleaner. This one works really good for me, so that's what I've been using. And you want to get your chain lube. And once you got your cleaner and your lube, make sure you get your bike up on your stand so that the wheel is up off the ground. That way you can free spin the wheel to spin the chain. As you can see, my chain is already very clean because I cleaned it already. You do not have to take this cover off, but I took it off because after you do enough chain cleanings, as this spins forward, it shoots a bunch of gunk. Here's the outside. This is what it normally looks like on there, right? That's a piece you're normal to looking at. Well, while this spins forward, it shoots all the gunk and all this goop onto the inside of this, right in these tracks here. And it can look really bad. So I took this off to make sure I cleaned out inside of there. I don't know how often you're supposed to take this off to clean out the inside, but I just hit about 5,000 miles and it was so bad that I actually thought I had an oil leak because of how much gunk was seeping out from the inside of this grease trap looking thing. But anyways, for the sake of this video, this is going to help having taken this off, so you'll be able to see exactly what I'm talking about. So first and foremost, you're going to want to use your chain cleaner. You spray it on there, give it a nice good spin. You get it all the way around. The best thing to do is to spray it, almost like I'm pretending the camera is my spray. You want to spray it almost in that direction while spinning the tire. That way you don't get anything on the tire, and everything ends up on the chain in this piece here because this is easy to clean off. So you get all that, all's good, and you use pretty much a bunch of paper towels and your agitation brush, and you'll push that on there, and you'll continue to spin it with your hand. Then you'll change direction, put it on there like that, keep spinning it. And then after you get it in there and you push pressure down, push pressure up, in, out, yada. You're going to notice something when you push it up. Right here on your bike, it'll tell you right there, if you can see it in the parentheses, it's getting a little blurry. You want 1.2 to 1.6 inches of chain slack, right? Well, when I was cleaning it, I noticed that I have way more than that required amount, okay? So while I was doing that cleaning, that's how I discovered I needed to do my chain maintenance, my chain slack, okay? You can read that if you need to. So what do you do first? You're already at this point because you got your bike up on your stand. The chain's fully exposed. You already cleaned it, and after it was nice and clean, you used your rags to pretty much clean it, the insides. You get it all nice and shiny. You sprayed your chain lube on there. Now what? Okay, so this is where the process of tightening up your chain actually begins. So first off, you're going to notice you've got a cotter pin. Now, it's going to be all the way through and probably bent up around this side and around this side. Pretty much, first and foremost, you want to grab your needle nose pliers and bend these out of place so that it's a nice straight cotter pin again. And then when you can get your cotter pin up, you just pull it out. Boom. You cannot use the same cotter pin twice. Do not do it. So make sure you have another cotter pin that matches this size before you do it. So now that you got that off, you have to loosen this bolt. This is the bolt that puts all the tension on your rear axle, which is this here. That's your rear axle. It goes all the way through. Okay? So in order to get that loosened up, you're going to need this special boy right here. This is a size 32 millimeter. Okay? Now, that fits on there flawlessly. And sure, you could use something like that, but it's going to be one hell of a fight. You're better off grabbing a big breaker bar like this. And then when you stick it on there, boom, now you don't have to fight nearly as hard to get it loose. Which, before I started this video, I made sure I already broke it loose. So that way I'm able to just continue right into the video for you guys. Because I didn't want to waste too much time with this startup piece, because this is pretty much the straightforward stuff. Next is you're going to want to make sure that you have your, there you go, you're going to want to make sure you have a measuring tape to figure out exactly how much you need to adjust it to get back in line with what you need. Okay. And again, it says it wants 1.2 to 1.6. Don't tighten it any more than that, and don't let it be any looser than that. So, in order to tighten it, you'll have one of these on each side. This is a normal standard bolt. There's no difference from this from anything else you'll find in the hardware store. This is just your average everyday nut. This nut holds this bolt in place. This gets tightened down to the body, to the frame of the bike, so that this doesn't move, okay? In order to tighten up your chain, ideally move your rear axle backwards, is you need to loosen this nut and then lefty-loosey, right? Hear me out again, lefty-loosey this bolt outwards. And it's going to push this out. And you've got your little measuring strips right here, right? You want to make sure that this is dead accurate on both sides. Okay, let me say that again. This has to be dead accurate on both sides. Let me show you the other side so you understand what I'm talking about. Okay. Okay. So now we're on this side of the bike. You'll notice it's different. You don't have any sort of giant god bolt to loosen up or anything like that. This is the same exact side, or same exact genuine idea. You're going to want to loosen this nut, loosen this bolt, and then once everything is perfect. See those hash marks on the top there? That has to be even on both sides. And then once you have it even to both sides, tighten this bolt back up. When that bolt is nice and tight on both sides, then, and only then, can you grab your measuring tape. Spin this wheel. Make sure it gets nice and tight and adjusted. And don't forget, when you take this off the stand, this all tightens up even further. So you're not going to want to tighten this up so badly that it is now at 1.2 inches of wiggle room. Because if you do it to 1.2 while it's up on the stand, when you drop this stand, it's going to become way too tight, and you're going to have to put it back up, take the cottering pin back out, re-loosen the nut, do everything all over again to loosen it. Okay? So let me say it one more time. It's a very straightforward process. Anybody can do this. 32 millimeter to loosen and tighten that bolt, okay? I'll go over torque specs as we get there. You loosen the nut, loosen the bolt. A little bit goes a long way, okay? Make sure they're equal on both sides. Then go ahead and tighten this up so that this doesn't go anywhere. Same thing on this side. After you think you're perfect, tighten this up. That way that doesn't go anywhere. Spin this to get a little bit of tension all over it. Drop the bike. Move it around a little bit. Measure the chain. Between 1.2 and 1.6 is the golden area. If you get it to about 1.6 on the stand, when you drop it and everything tightens up, you might be pretty golden. But that's going to be a big question of what I'm going to try now. Okay? So hold on and I'll get to that point. All right. Now, because those bolts are screwed in directly towards the front of the bike, that means righty-tighty is always going to go to the exhaust, okay? Spinning towards the exhaust. Lefty-loosey is going to spin away from the exhaust. When you mess with these, the nut and bolt on both sides, it is so easy to lose track of what you're doing because of how weird it feels when you perform this action. So the next thing you're going to want to make sure you have when you finish tightening all that up is, if you already got your 32 millimeter socket, is you're going to want to make sure that you have a big, nice torque wrench. If you got a nice torque wrench, this one can go 10 to 150 pounds. This will do. You're going to need to put that on this torque wrench, and you're going to have to torque that down to the proper specs. Okay. So I'm going to set my big torque wrench right there for when I need it. To get to those little nuts and bolts there, it usually helps a lot to have something like this. Just a little tiny little thing like this. Because obviously you're not getting a socket on that. You're no speeder bar, no nothing. You're going to need something like this. That's all you're going to fit on there. So here we go. I'm going to knock this out real quick. All right. So in the way you measure your chain, right, is you want to go from sprocket center, which is pretty much right there, to sprocket center, which is going to be about right there. Okay. So you're going to want to get you want to find somewhere right in the middle to measure it. So we're pretty close to the center on that side, pretty close to the center on this side. Once you see me do it, you'll never really have to mess with this again. I'm getting approximately about 26 inches, which means ideally wherever the 13-inch mark is where I want to measure permanently. Okay. 13 inches, approximately right in the neighborhood of the back half or back piece of this reservoir here. So that means when we measure, we're just going to more or less maneuver this in a way where this can sneak right up underneath there. Oh, sorry. Yeah, somewhere right about there. All right, so now we're looking at the chain, right? You're going to want to pick one of these notches here. This is probably sitting, when I pull it down, it comes down to what? About right about that 6, right? Well, when I push it up, Holy crap. I am hitting very easily the 4.5 mark. I push down, I'm hitting 6. Pushing up, I'm at about 4.5. So that means the difference is about 1.5 inches. So for me, I'm right within the safety range, but I'm on the higher end. So I'm going to make a slight adjustment, very tiny one. Pretty much since your bike is on the stand and you've already put it in neutral so that this wheel free spins, this is an excellent time to check the condition of your tires, make sure you don't have any punctures, no issues, and just kind of get a feel for it. Make sure that you have a fresh pair of gloves, that you don't have any lube or chain cleaner on your hands or gloves. Just really take a moment to look at the tire, feel it, see if you're developing flat spots or anything like that. Right, and as you can see, I loosened up this right here, and I loosened that up just a tiny bit. I'm gonna kind of move it around a little bit more, get the chain just a little tighter, and keep spinning it every time I make an adjustment so that the chain tightens up and the wheel gets everything needed. All right, and don't forget that when you put it down on the ground, this tire is going to move backwards and everything else, and it's going to get real tight real quick. So just be very cautious about what kind of adjustment you make while it's on the air. All right, so I just used the measuring tape. I just tightened everything up as far as these here. And I made sure that with my new measurement, while it's still in the air, I'm sitting at about 1.5 inches of wiggle room. So what I wanted to do is the very next thing to make sure that everything is even. So as you can see those dash marks, I like to find something to measure the distance between the mark on the silver plate versus the actual frame. And coincidentally, the thing that I need right now is about the cotter pin. So when I put a cotter pin right between there and I look at it dead on, I can see a little bit of both lines. So that's about the space I want on both sides. So now I'm going to tighten this side up till I have the exact same spacing on both sides. And once they're all tightened up, I'll show you what happens when you drop it off the lift and show you how much more it tightens up. All right, I'll be right back. Don't forget, when you're trying to tighten, always spin it towards the exhaust. Okay? And also, while you're doing all this, making sure everything's good, now is a great time to check your rear brake pads too. So as you can see, mine look great. There's the plate and there's the brake pad there touching the rotor. I've got plenty of life left on my rear brakes. And I'm very happy with how this right side is measured up right now. I've got just enough space that when I put the cotter pin there, and I line this up with that, I end up with exactly where I want to be. All right, double check the other side, and then we'll tighten up the nut to the torque spec. All right, so I snuck upstairs real quick because I wanted to show you inside the ZX6R handbook. It says you want to check the drivetrain for slack every 600 miles and lubricate every 400. So I kind of personally cut it right down the center, and I just check for slack, lube, and clean the drive chain every 500 miles. I find that that works best. So you're going to find the big info on page 131. 2019 through 2022 should all be the same. All right, so I'm page 131 here, and this is a good recap for the video. Honestly, you pretty much want to clean, lube the chain, all that good stuff, put it up on a stand. I mean, it walks you through the process step by step, tells you exactly what I did as far as measuring the midpoint between the two sprockets. Make sure you check it. You want the 1.2 to 1.6 inches, just like the sticker says on the side. exactly how to loosen everything, how to go through it. Like, this is all super good information. It's pretty much the entire video in a nutshell. But here's what we're looking for. The big god nut there, the axle nut. You want to torque that down to 96 foot-pounds. And you need to have a torque wrench that can support that in order to do it properly. Do not do this if you don't have a torque wrench. All right, and then once you've got it torqued and set, you'll notice that in the center there where the cotter pin goes, there's a hole that drops down through. You're able to tighten this up to 30 degrees tighter after 96 to make sure that the hole lines up with an opening on the nut so that you can properly put a cotter pin through, okay? Do not do it if you don't have a torque wrench. All right, so let's get this all squared away. So if you don't know how to set up a torque wrench, I'm going to show you how to do it. But also real quick while I'm thinking about it, the trick to doing this nut, since 96 torque pounds is a lot to both loosen and tighten, make sure you are always applying pressure downwards into the stand. I know it's very tempting to want to lift upwards, but lifting upwards, if you miss the notch on your spools or anything, the whole bike can come crashing down. Trust me, just always apply downward force. Right, so I got my 32mm socket right there, and I've got my torque wrench. Make sure you always store your torque wrench in the lowest setting as to prevent it from becoming uncalibrated. So as you can see, mine, it goes all the way up to 150. I'm going to get it to, you're going to loosen this nut here, and you're going to tighten this all up. The whole handle will spin. And we're going to get it up to 90, and I'll stop there to show you. All right, so yeah, you pretty much come here, loosen it up, and then once it's loose, you'll want to put one hand on the top here, one on the handle, and spin it clockwise to tighten. All right. All right, I got my torque wrench set up to 96. And I got that all set up, ready to get tightened down. So we're going to want to make sure that when we do our righty-tighty, we're pushing towards the lift. Do not lift. Do not pull up, okay? Oh my God. Okay, so this is the magical moment. Okay, so this is the magical moment right here you're looking for. Is the torque wrench is going to click real hard to let you know when you get there. Okay, you hear that? That means boom, I'm at 96 on the dot. So we take this off and let's look at where the hole is. Okay, the hole is directly covered by that middle flap there. Meaning we're going to have to tighten it, which is, that hole is less than 30 degrees away from being perfect for a cotter pin, okay? So that means we're going to need to tighten that a little bit more till the hole is available. But do not use your torque wrench to tighten that down. This is not a normal wrench. This is not a breaker bar. This is a torque wrench. If you want it to survive and live a long life, don't use it for that purpose. All right, so as you'll see, I tightened it up, and that's pretty much dead center for that hole. I might have to tighten it just a smidge more, maybe. But now I just got to get my cotter pin. Right, so here's the old cotter pin. You always want to throw those away. And then here's my new cotter pin. And what you want it to do is when you go to put it there, you want it to be able to just fall right through, no problem. You don't want to have to hammer it in. It's way too big then. And you want that to just get right in there, just like that, okay? And then you're going to use your needle nose pliers. And you're just going to bend this around to make it so it doesn't move. That's it. Here, I'll finish it in just a second. All right, and there it is. I got it all bent up. Everything's in there nice and solid. And that's it. Now to take it off the lift, move it around a little bit, make sure all is good, and we're done. All right, I just left it down off the lift, got everything tightened up, put that cover back on, and I just finished measuring the new chain slack. So you're going to see that now it is tighter than the beginning of the video. But the big idea of what I wanted to show you was, now that all this is tightened up and I took it off the lift, if you remember, we had about 1.5 inches of slack while it was on the lift. Now that it's down, I pushed it to the end of the garage and I pushed it right back up here and I remeasured. I'm now at 1.25 inches on the dot. So I'm probably at about 1.25 instead of 1.2. So that means I lost approximately 1/4 of an inch of wiggle room from being in the air to being back on the ground. So now I am tightened back up. I am good to go. I am able to ride this into the sunset once again. So there we are. Everything looks good. Everything's lined up exactly where it needs to be. And the next thing to do would be to take it for a ride, a very short ride, maybe like a mile or so, and then come back and you would measure it one more time just to make sure everything didn't move or adjust on you too much, and make sure you're still good. And that's it. That's how you do the full chain tension maintenance and adjustments. It's a lot easier than most people would lead you to believe, but you have to make sure, it is critical that you have a replacement cotter pin, the 32mm socket for this, a torque wrench, a measuring tape, and that you do everything I showed you. As long as you follow this video to a T, you're good to go to do it on your own. Now, I have no idea how long this actually took me because I was fondling with the tools, the camera, the video, all this other stuff. But if you're brand new to doing this type of stuff, it's honestly going to take you maybe 2 hours because it's going to be your first time. You're going to be fiddling between looking at this video, rewinding it, doing step by step. But once you get really good at it, you could probably do it in like less than an hour, no problem. But it's just a matter of kind of getting used to it and going through the motions and getting everything all set up. All right, guys, that's it. And I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm going to go jump in the shower and go to bed. It is late, so I hope I was able to help you guys out. Worst case scenario, this will at least be an educational reminder for me next time I have to do it. As you saw in the manual, it says to check your chain tension slack every about 600 miles. I check it every 5. But honestly, I've noticed that it's approximately every, I'm going to say about 2,000 miles maybe, that I've actually had to have adjusted it. This is the 3rd time I've ever adjusted it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I wish you guys the best. All right. Peace.